Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Jono Manson on Nightingales.
why don't we go back to where it starts for me, where I first heard your name come up in the scene at Nightingales,
Right.
and which I guess you kind of ruled the roost over there, and a lot of bands came through. We had Blues Traveler, Spin Doctors, God Street, all
Sure.
came up through there. You want to talk a little bit about that scene? And
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Nightingale Bar, for those of you who don't know, was a total dive, on the corner of 13th Street and 2nd Avenue in Manhattan. And live music started there in the early 80s, I think maybe even around 83, I want to say. And you know, just down the street from Nightingale was another bar called Dan Lynch, which was like sort of more of a blues bar. The Holmes brothers used to play there, and all kinds of it's sort of a roadhouse blues. An Irish bar turned into a roadhouse blues bar. And I remember the night that my band was playing in there, when the guy who had just bought the Nightingale came in and um it's actually Nightingales. It's the Nightingale is incorrect, but for some reason we always used to call it that. But that wasn't the name of the place. Anyway, he came in and said, "Yeah, I want to have music in my place, and would you guys play there?" And so we walked, we on a break we walked down and looked at the place, and it was, there was no stage, there was no nothing. Back then, there was, later there was a quote unquote stage. It was about maybe 4 inches off the ground, and just enough of a stage to keep you from getting your teeth knocked out by the microphone when people were dancing, and but back in those days in particular, there was such an explosion of live music in New York, and I think elsewhere too, but that's my experience growing up and having my formative years as a musician be there, kind of on the heels of the whole late 70s punk and new wave explosion, where all of a sudden every little dive bar had live music, uh and certainly, that all started sort of a pushback against the whole disco era. All of a sudden live music was happening. So it was a very, very fertile time. And it was a time in which amazing scenes could happen in places like this. So it was this tiny dive bar, and we started playing there. And a scene started to grow around there. It's of course also very close to like where all the NYU dorms are and stuff. So the college kids were coming out, and a scene started to develop there for reasons that I cannot exactly, explain, because you can't take a pinch of this, a dash of that, and shake it up, just add water and you have a scene. It has to evolve in some kind of natural way, but it did. And some of the bands you mentioned, I mean, I remember John Popper from Blues Traveler used to come around. He's a year older than the other three founding members of that band. So he graduated from high school a year before them. So he was free to roam before they were. So I remember him coming around and sitting in. And of course, everyone was blown away by him, because even back then he was, an amazing instrumentalist. And then other bands like the Spin Doctors started playing, like they had a regular Monday night gig there. Joan Osborne is another person who played there regular. I mean, I remember one night stepping off the bandstand on a break at the Nightingale, and a girl walked up to me and said, "Hi, my name is Joan, and I want to be a singer." And that was Joan Osborne. So a lot of people kind of got their start in that scene, not necessarily in that bar, but there was a whole bunch of other little. This of course predates the Wetlands
right.
by several years. Which of course then became, as far as the New York jam band scene of the mid to late 1980s, kind of the place.
Hmm.
A larger venue, and it had a big stage and sound, and there was all kinds of hangout nooks where all kinds of nefarious behavior could occur.
It was like where you graduated to, huh?
Exactly. Although I gotta say that yeah, you graduated to up to the Wetlands, but there, for all of the bands that you mentioned, and all the ones that the Godspeed Wine and other bands that became fairly well known, there were tons of others on that scene who were uh musically just as interesting. Who, some people from those bands splintered off and went on to do all kinds of other things in different musical situations. Others, packed it up and went back home. But there was such a hotbed of music happening then, and we were all collaborating with one another. There was no sense of competition between musicians in those days. It was really, all about sharing, and it was great to be a part of that.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.